Hello, Alex. Hey, guys. I can't hear you, Alex. Oh, wait, you're
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
How's it going?
Good.
Hello, Niall.
Nice fishes you have there on the wall. Very pretty.
My friend, he made them. He's an artist. They're big, like, oh, yeah, like this big. Let me just send a tweet.
Hello, are you there, Tim?
Hey, how's it?
Hey, am I a bit early? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Early is fine. 5 minutes early.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Giovanni, hi.
I'm going.
Hey.
Hi, Niall. Hi, Alexandra.
You are alone.
Yeah.
I'm going to call yard workers in the other room.
Okay, I'm tweeting that we are starting.
Hey, but so I'm curious if it's actually hard work going on there, or if it's just like pre-release drinks. I know. I think I know which way I'd be.
I reckon they're working hard.
Maybe that's what the countdown's for, when they can crack open the drinks.
How many? What's the? I've not been watching the clock for QGIS release.
It's what, like 2 hours?
We should really stop and have a moment of celebration for the release, eh?
No, abbiamo tutto. Però quando qualcuno deve parlare qua.
Quindi ci passiamo il microfono. Hi everybody.
Hi Paolo. 1 hour 33 minutes.
How you going?
Fine.
Hey Tim, what's the etiquette here? Do we mute when we're not playing, or does Zoom just handle it?
I play like Sergeant Major, and when people are too noisy, I mute them. But
Okay.
if your mic's not noisy, you don't need to mute. But if your kids start screaming, I'll mute you or something. In the background.
Hey, the recordings are working really well.
Yes, no, it's. I actually quite enjoyed. Like yesterday and the day before, I really felt like I could participate in the conference with. My wife is complaining. She says I might as well just be in Madeira, but please start.
You could sleep in your own bed.
Yes, I sleep in my own bed. No, it's worked really well, and we had some good discussions yesterday with the issue tracker and things, and we could all really participate virtually.
Yeah, I have to catch up on that one. I haven't watched that recording yet. I was listening to the certification one. That was good.
Oh yes. Yeah, I had a few glitches in the middle. Good thing you listened and didn't watch, because I kept crashing.
Hey, that's a fairly old school looking T-shirt.
Yeah, it's I'm waiting for a special event. It's like the old intelligent choice, intelligent design. So, who's hosting this session, Giovanni?
Sorry, Tim, say again.
Just looking to see who's the facilitator. Is Paolo? Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be the chair of the session, Paolo.
Yeah, okay. So should we wait another little bit for others, or?
It's up to you from the Zoom room. You don't have to wait for us, but maybe on your side you're waiting for some people still. I don't know.
I think Victor is joining in.
Giovanni, maybe we can have a quick chat after this, because I've got some logistics to talk to you about with the Zoom room ownership, which I still couldn't.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Hey, who else have we got in the main room? I can only see like the
Lena
center.
there, and I can't see who's hiding right at the back there.
Yeah, and off to the left and right as well. I can't see.
Can't see who else is there. I thought I saw Richard walking in. There's Andreas. We need a wide-angle webcam next time, Giovanni.
Or like a little, or one that automatically pans to whoever's talking.
Hi, Victor. Welcome. Hi, Jürgen. Oh, there's automatically panning. I know there is. Hey. Okay, Paolo, maybe you want to start?
Okay. Okay, then. I don't think we need to recap the issue, but well, maybe I think we all know. So basically, the idea is whether we should remove the providers for external stuff from processing, or we can keep it for later. Basically, in the last PSC, we decided to keep it for 3.0 and postpone the decision to now, more or less. So, well, one thing that I noticed is that probably we don't have anybody from SAGA. Maybe Vaclav is from GRASS, and we don't have anybody from OTB too. So basically, it's an internal discussion, more or less, which is not what we would have liked. But so I can open discussion like that. Maybe Victor, you started the thing, or Niall, you can. Want to start?
The idea at first, so well, I mean, when I proposed that to take things out, it was basically to make things easier, because some providers or some applications that we were using, we were using them as a library. Like in the case of GDOC, that means that it was completely transparent to the user, so it's always in there. There are no problems with the versions, and this thing, if there's a new GDOC version, the user cannot change that, so he has to use that version that comes with QGIS, and processing is adapted to that version, and there's no discussion of that. But then we have other providers, other backends that was complex to have the same thing. With SAGA, people always wanted a newer version, or there were some issues with some things, and the same with Grass. So the idea was like, okay, this is not something that we can make it work out of the box all the time, so let's take it out. And that was basically my idea when taking out the R provider and the OTB one. Also with the hope that some people would take care of maintaining that outside, and that was more flexible for them. Actually, the OTB people were very, I mean, they really liked the idea. Said, oh yeah, sure, we'll do that, and we just will maintain that. I don't know why they changed a little bit their attitude lately, because at the beginning they were really happy with that, and I actually, made the effort to take out all the code from core and create a new provider, a new plugin, and I transferred the ownership of that to the OTB organization in GitHub, so they were happy with that. But yeah, and that's my point of view, that I think that if it's not something that we can make it work out of the box and that is, completely safe, it should be out of core. And even in that case, I think it's not a bad idea to have it outside, because in terms of, who is going to maintain that, if there's a dedicated team to that, like the OTB team or the SAGA team, then it's better to do that outside. In the case of SAGA, by the way, I don't know if Alex Bruy is connected, because Alex has been working on a new SAGA provider that I haven't had really time to check. And apparently it supports all the versions and it's much more flexible. It's a different approach, but I haven't had time to test it. I don't know if anyone has tried that. That's some other thing and he's dealing with that completely outside. So it's a separate plugin, not in core. So that's I mean, you don't know the situations. I don't know what else to say. That's from my point of view. That's where, my idea when proposing taking things out is because at the beginning there were few providers, just the original ones, but now there are a lot of other providers or a lot of other plugins that add new processing algorithms, and why some of them have to be in core and some others are separate plugins. I don't think that's a fair thing. We have a lot of fortunately we have a lot of plugins that contribute algorithms to processing, and I don't know why we should keep some of them in core and others just and then manage them in a different way.
Can I make a question, Victor?
Yeah.
So the idea would be also to put out Grass and SAGA, correct?
From my my initial proposal was that the thing is that for the OTB one, it was easier to actually find someone who wanted to take care of that, and it was like it makes sense because it was the OTB team itself. And the SAGA case, I don't think that there are many SAGA developers that are interested in QGIS, or they are they are going to spend time on doing that. It was going to be done by ourselves, so that's why I haven't taken that out. But apparently the Grass team also, there are people in the Grass team that would like to contribute that. So if it's taken out, the Grass team might take care of manage that as well. So yeah, that was the original proposal, but that
okay. I'm not against it. I'm not against it, but my point is that at the moment, I don't agree with Alex Bruy when it says that most of things do not work in SAGA and Grass, for instance, because I think that most of the things do work. We have a few things that do not work, but most do work. And the important point for me here that right now we ship an installer, and I'm talking about Windows, of course, because of the user base that includes the binaries of Grass and SAGA, and the user do have in processing they have Grass and SAGA that it's quite solid. It's not bulletproof, but it's quite solid. So I'm not against putting these two providers outside as a plugin, but I believe that if we don't ship the same user experience out of the box, this would be pretty bad. So do we plan to still include the binaries in the standalone installer of QGIS? And if yes, can we make these two plugins install immediately after having installed the main package automatically?
I'm also not. I mean, I like the idea of having things out. So like the R plugin or the ODB plugin. So maybe they're not so, let's say, mainstream. But it's true that like the GDAL provider or SAGA or GRASS, those are maybe a little bit special because, you know, the people actually now identify processing with them. Like, you know, they used to come with processing, right? So maybe those can be treated a little bit different. I'm not against keeping them in core, but one of the things that I think is important in this case, not to, like in the case of OTB, like they say they are going to do something for handling new versions in a better way, or, you know, there's more flexibility in the back end. I think that if we keep things in core, so GRASS or SAGA, we need to treat those backends as a library, and so not as a software that you can install whatever version you want and it will adapt to that, but instead more like it's the GDAL provider, right? So it's a library in there, and the user doesn't do anything. It comes with that. So the same thing with the SAGA. So SAGA comes with QGIS. It's like a sort of a library we use, but there's no way the user can tweak that or modify things or configure things to use a different SAGA, because that's what usually a source of problems. But I'm not against that. I mean, if we can ship that with like QGIS and comes with a SAGA version and the corresponding provider, that's perfect. I mean, that's in the same with GRASS.
And actually,
how would you handle that outside of Windows, where you're not in control of it?
Yeah, that's like, you know, in Windows it's easy to do, but maybe, I mean, that's the thing about, can we provide a different experience, as Paolo was saying, for Linux or Mac? Like say, hey, if you install QGIS in Windows, you get the full package and processing is, you know, have full power in there. If you install that in Mac, it doesn't come with SAGA, or it comes with SAGA but it's disabled, and then you have to do it manually, whatever. And that's it.
Isn't that what snappy packages offer for us? What they call the snap packages.
Yeah, but that's only going to solve it for certain use cases. I think it's never going to. People are always going to want to install things only through the software centers and the distro libraries, and there's always going to be that.
And if you install, let's say, Google Earth for Linux or something, they ship with the Qt libraries and they just bundle everything in. I mean, we could. I know it goes against the ethos of Linux, where you have shared libraries between all applications, but it is the good way.
I think you'd be fighting to get that accepted into Debian. And
one more comment from me. Victor was saying to start treating, for example, SAGA as a library. Actually, since we decided to only support SAGA LTR, it was kind of treating that as a library. And in fact, since we decided that, we started to fix modules, and things got much more better from the user point of view. And so I completely agree with that. I understand that if we want to continue on this path, there will be a technical issue to solve for Linux user and Mac user. I'm a Linux user, but I tend to, in this case, to try to look at the big picture. In this case, the big picture is the vast majority of Windows user. And another point is that I don't really would like to see GRASS and SAGA not show out of the box in QGIS. It is because regardless that the user will or will not use, I don't know, a tool to do a kriging or a complex analysis, it is important, or it was important in the past for the adoption of QGIS to be able to tell users that they can do this stuff out of the box. if they want to, and they do not need to configure and download and configure paths and download binaries and whatever. So it seems stupid, but my feeling is that it is important that we are able to say, yeah, we have 500 or 800 analysis and geoprocessing tools out of the box.
Hey,
one thing that I would say that is, I guess that we are like in SAGA and GRASS, so that's good. Like, you know, I think that is an important part, and it should be there because it's kind of always been there. But what I would try to, and this is one of the reasons I guess we started all the discussion, is to add new stuff in there. Like, you know, the ODB people were asking to put OTB back into core, right? And I think that it's fine to have SAGA and GRASS, but we should not add more stuff in there, right? Because that's gonna make things much more complex. Whether in the case of OTB, whether some other provider. So I think that maybe we can define, let's say, like the core processing providers. That would be SAGA, GRASS, and DDL, and then the native algorithms, and then everything that is outside from there. I think that everything can be kept outside of core. That's my opinion, and I think that's probably the important thing to decide in this meeting, right? To whether are we open to putting more stuff into core, so more providers that instead of being managed in a separate repo and a separate plugin, do we want them to have them in core? And from my point of view, that's not a good idea. I mean, but for SAGA and GRASS, I agree that they are a little bit different. But for the rest of the plugins, we should have some, you know, like a strategy or something already decided. Like, you know, this is like that or that.
Can I just like, I think we might need to back up a little bit here in the discussion, because, you know, people keep saying the current approach is working fine with SAGA and GRASS and that, but I'm kind of getting the feeling that that is because certain people have been putting in a whole lot of work to make that happen, and those people are saying they don't really want to do that work anymore. Like, I'm not even sure if the current approach is a sustainable thing, and that's what I think we need to work out first off as well, is can we keep going what we've done in the past, or do we have to change because it's not going to keep working?
Well, I mean, it's true that there's a lot of work to create all those description files, and when there are new SAGA versions, for instance, in the case of SAGA, I'm talking about that. Giovanni knows that pretty well because he's been fixing that and testing, and, you know, with all this mess with the SAGA people doing syntax changes and changes in the API every single version. So that's definitely not maintainable or sustainable. That's true. But actually, if we have this the LTR, or I mean, if we just focus on a single version, I think that should not be a problem, because what we should try to do is to not have to follow all the versions of SAGA, especially if you have followed the development of SAGA. There are not really a lot of bug fixes. There are just new algorithms being added. Most of them are like very, you know, limited, like very specific things that no one is going to ever use, or they just do some kind of a strange change in the API. So I mean, if you take a version from now, I don't think that in the next 3, 4, 5 versions of SAGA you're going to see something that is really remarkable that we have to offer to our QGIS users. So that's how I see it. But
so in your opinion, like, the current approach is sustainable? Like, we've got the manpower to keep doing that?
I mean, it's sustainable if our plan is not to follow every single version that SAGA does and, you know, adapt and incorporate new algorithms.
Yeah, sorry.
But just, you know, have what we have now, like, which is a very nice set of a few hundred algorithms coming from SAGA, and keep that working. That's more than enough for us.
Was there actually any movement in SAGA LTR?
No.
So there's probably not going to be any, right?
No, they promise that it won't be.
Yeah. as far as I can tell, they are just Johan is working on the LTR, or just keeping the LTR as it is, and everyone else works on the other branches. So there's no movement at all, and if we stick with the LTR.
Yeah, so basically, we have no issue with that.
Are there bug fixes coming back to the LTR, or is it kind of just a stagnant? This is the release at this point of time, and they don't touch it anymore.
Stagnant.
Yeah.
Because I can't even run it on my machine. Like on Fedora, it just crashes straight away, and it's a known issue.
Well, I understand that maybe as someone as you can have problems. In general, since we started only supporting SAGA, fixes started really getting better and better because we were able to start fix the description files that were moving fast before that. And right now in 2.18, I think that the support is pretty good.
Yeah, but maybe Victor's point of on Windows we fix it and we say, okay, the Windows, we've got this version installed, it's all working, we can guarantee that. On other platforms, we don't ship it with those enabled by default, and you've got to go and seek them out. Maybe that's got merit.
It would be too unacceptable to, for instance, add on our site or our manual detailed instruction on how to compile SAGA LTR on Linux. No, I'm just asking.
That's still far.
But it doesn't help anyway. Like in my circumstance, on Fedora at least, if I compile it myself, it still crashes. You get it through the distro, it crashes. You compile it yourself, it crashes. It's an issue with the newer compilers.
Yeah, the problem is the SAGA. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's an edge case. Obviously most of our users are on Windows, and we satisfy it and get it stable there, and we address whatever 90% or something.
Victor, one question for Windows. SAGA as a version that do not need to be installed, are just static binaries.
Yeah.
Does it exist also for other platforms? This version?
No, as far as I know, that's just a Windows thing that they give you they provide just a zip file, you unzip it and you can. The problem with SAGA is that the project itself is very unreliable. So they might have some issues with whatever you were saying in Fedora, and they're not fixing that. Then they change things without taking into account the user base. So as a project, you cannot rely on them. You cannot trust really the project, and it's bad because the project is very important for us, and it provides a very nice functionality, but then it's, that's it.
The other old idea would be to incorporate SAGA LTR at this point into our code base. It's your idea, so that's still valid in a way. So if we feel that LTR is not as stable as it appears to be, we can always ask this option.
Hello, Victor.
Anybody?
Not here.
So maybe we can break the issue into each provider, because we are focusing on SAGA, which, as far as I understand, is pretty much solved with LTR approach. I think we did quite a bit of work to have this and to convince SAGA developers to get this, and I think we have been successful, and I don't really see any major reason to change this. As Giovanni said, now things are working out of the box. So I think it will be more work to remove it than to leave it as this. So really on that side, I don't see really big issues. I don't know. Maybe we can discuss one thing at a time so it's clearer. Anyone want to say something about SAGA?
Hello.
I would like to take a closer look at that new provider that Alex really developed. I don't know if it's going to be useful, but maybe he found a solution for supporting other versions. And I don't know how he has approached that, but apparently there's like more flexible support for different versions without having to update all the descriptions each time. And I don't know how it works or if it works, but apparently he's been working on that. So it's a pity that he's not in the meeting.
Well, I didn't check it, but I think it's the same approach as GRASS plugin, the core plugin, and also the OTB stuff. I mean, asking the XML to the backend and rebuilding the interface from there, and that's much more sustainable in my view.
Right, yeah, definitely it's more sustainable. Yeah, the thing is that it doesn't allow to do the little tweaks for separating algorithm into several ones, but maybe that's something that we should consider. We prefer that, think about the, sustainability and sacrifice that, manual tweaks that we did to the description files. So that's another good idea.
So can we decide that we stick with the current situation for now, and we're ready for change in case this new provider from Alex is successful or whatever, and so we move the discussion to the next LTR if it will ever happen?
Sorry if I'm asking again. It could be possible to anyway to put also SAGA and GRASS as a plugins, but during installation, I'm speaking about Windows here, to install also the binaries of GRASS and SAGA and immediately install also the plugins.
My issue with that is like I don't know if the underlying problem's been fixed, but we had a whole lot of issues with processing first off when it was provided in the install and then it was also in the repository, and people would get these kind of mismatches where they had an older version in their local, their user folder that was overriding the actual version that was supposed to come with a new release, and so they're running a version of processing that was a couple of releases out of date. And so I'm very hesitant to have any of these kind of plugins that are available for both, like the core install and the repository at the same time.
Yeah, no, actually the plugin manager is not prepared to handle that. So the plugin that is in core and it's already in the user folder, I think that hasn't been fixed, but that drives the plugin manager crazy, and then you think you have the most recent version and you don't have it. So definitely I agree with Neil, that's a terrible idea to have a plugin in core and at the same time be able
to And
so I guess we could still have a plugin that is like set up some sort of system where the moment you first launch it, it goes and installs and enables this plugin from the repository, and then you get the updates normally through there. That is a possibility.
Guys, Rashad has joined us in the Zoom channel as well. So maybe Rashad, you, as OTB maintainer, might want to just say a few things from your side of your concerns.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can
hear
you.
Rashad. In the meantime, maybe I can say something. I see a problem in the approach that Giovanni pointed out now, because one of the nice things is that we have all the translation, all the help system, all the testing in our workflow. And if we remove SAGA, even if we install automatically, SAGA or GRASS or whatever, then we miss that. And an eventual team should recreate all the infrastructure for testing, for help, for everything. So I think this would be a major problem, major cost for the operation.
And maybe while these technical issues get sorted, should we? I think we've kind of finished discussing SAGA, yeah.
Okay, so can we take a decision about SAGA for now? I think it seems to me that we pretty much agree on the basic stuff. Do we?
So continue as usual.
Well, yeah, that's my proposal.
Hello?
I like that.
I'm fine. I'm fine with SAGA. If I'm fine for that to be the approach for SAGA. Yeah.
Hello? Can you hear us?
Yes, Rashad, we can hear you.
Yes.
Hello? Hi. Hi, Victor. I am with DM Pasiro here. He's also working in OTV. Hello. We were thinking about if the new plugin doesn't pose no problem, could we add it like SAGA and the grass, because we can fix it, normally usually fix things, or if we can keep it as plugin for the current version and later if it seems stable, could we move back to the core or things like that, because the external provider will, as I hear about SAGA, if still having a lot of crashes, yeah, fine. But in our point of view, we can do something to stop the crashes and managing the descriptor file on our tree with OTD. So you guys will have less maintenance on such tasks. The part we will be giving, and we will be open to fixing any issues will be the part of the geo algorithm task and the other one. So this one will be closely tied to QGIS processing API, if I understand correctly, and that way it will be interesting for both of us. But if you really prefer to keep outside, that is also fine for us, I think.
As long as there is a stable API, so we can that we can use.
Because already there, so removing will be like, okay, if there are issues, I understand the maintenance things about things, but we are really could reduce it. The current API, I need to do some if-def and other things to get some complexity in OTB. One issue. So if it's really there, we could have more tighter integration, in my opinion.
I guess my response to that is what's the issue with it being a plugin? Like, we've got a really good plugin system. You know, people, it's mature, it's stable. There's hundreds of things available via the plugin repository. Why do we need to go for this sort of everything is inbuilt approach versus utilizing that plugin repository?
Actually, there is nothing issue with the plugin repository for us. That's why we are also okay if you decide the other way. The thing is, the code is tightly related to the plugin part of QGIS, processing plugin of QGIS. So we think, okay, that might help it will be the right place, because it's kind of a plugin which depends on another plugin. So it doesn't affect much on the QGIS API changes, but what it will be affect is changes in the QGIS processing. And once it's there, you can actually change something. Okay, if you change some behavior of processing provider, for example, I don't know, maybe after some version or some feedback fixes, then you can also test the code and without affecting the other. For example, you can test the code in the plugin without seeing if it's break or if it works with OTV, because that part we can do, and we can provide fixes on that part. And you will be more knowledgeable about the processing code than us. because you are already maintaining stuff in that. So it's not like it will not. I guess it will be not like other plugins which directly depend on a QGIS API core.
Well, the processing API is fixed. So, I mean, every plugin could use that same argument that they want, all the QGIS changes to run through their plugin test suite and that. But it's not that's not a feasible approach, really.
No,
but the processing API is fixed now. Like it broke for 3.0, but that's because all the API broke for 3.0. But for the life cycle of 3.x, the API that's working now will be working for 3.12.
Because the one argument we had was, okay, OTB has some complexity in managing application. There are parameters which you use in a group of parameters, and there are some parameters which you need to show and hide during the application. So it's a bit more complex when you consider algorithms like training, classification, and things like that, other than some other small algorithms where you can convert an image into an output. So in that part, we need to okay, we have a complexity, so we can work around the complexity, but we still need a bit of change in the processing. And even with that processing, we are working around. So if it's more closely related, you guys know what is coming. Okay, OTB has this thing, and that is also not going to change for the next 10 years. And QGIS also will have a stable API, which is also not going to stable. So things will get more on a user point of view. I'm talking, and on a developer point of view, there is some work on both sides, but you guys know your code, so you can you have expert in that area, which we don't have, and we can work on our part without thinking that, okay, you break our stuff or you break your stuff, nothing like that.
But I don't think this has any impact, like any difference if OTB was included as core or is via a separate plugin. Like, so I fully understand that there's certain things you need adapted in the processing API to meet your use, but that's going to be the same process if OTB was installed out of the box versus if it's in a plugin. We still would have to go through a process of evaluating those API changes and working out how it fits with the whole design of processing. They're kind of two separate issues, really.
Yeah, but the for example, what I was also looking in the processing core, there are descriptors for GRASS and SAGA, which already undergone some changes. I don't know if the GRASS developer list or SAGA developer list was notified or was aware of such a big change. But since it was in your tree, you could modify. What we say is, okay, we can keep you out of such modification, but if the API is, if we can rely on API, for example, if you are willing to, okay, there is an API where you can use this feature in the API in OTB or any provider, which is something you are interested, okay. I think the GRASS also has the same issue, because even splitting application, for example, in training, you have like 10 classifier. So you have, instead of loading one descriptor file, you are passing like 10 descriptor file, which will also slow QGIS after installing plugin. But we cannot fix that part because, okay, even the user reports on our bug tracker, we cannot fix because it's we can only say, okay, it's because QGIS we want to split. So you guys cannot fix that because you are not splitting up. We are managing the plugin. So it's kind of put users in, okay, what do I do now if I install OTB, there are more applications than I run OTB normally in QGIS, and my QGIS is slow when I install OTB. So people don't want QGIS to be slow, even if it's installing plugin. The point is not related to plugin or not plugin, but like that.
I actually, I think this is a different discussion. I think this is a discussion about certain changes you want to see made in the processing API. But I think just for the sake of keeping this current discussion focused on the issue that we set out to discuss, which is if these extra providers are in core or a plugin, I think we might need to shelve that discussion and leave that to the pull request or on the mailing list discussion. Otherwise, we're going to get bogged down in the technical details of that particular particular question.
Sorry, I mean I was talking when we talked about the stable API. It got a bit discussion got a bit dragged. Sorry for that. So this is one question which we had about the stable API. Okay, if QGIS going to give the API stable and telling this, then if we manage it as a plugin, we need to keep working. Today we split the application even though we don't want to, and later we change it because maybe it can be fixed later for a new provider, or even GRASS or SAGA demands the same thing, it can be modified. So that kind of stability, it can be considered stable with a feature bug fix, or we can call it a thing, but because it's now external, so we need to keep track of change, or we would like, okay, something which will be interesting for both of us. So if your decision was to externalize or put it as plugin, we don't see it as a bad thing totally. We are okay with that management of maintenance of this code. But there are other things. But the other part of discussion is more related to, like you said, it's not totally related to this discussion. So
yeah, I just think for the interest of keeping this discussion focused, we probably should move the discussion about the API changes, or the API additions, we should say, because it won't be a change. Keep that for a different meeting, or keep that on the mailing list, or the pull request discussion. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, right. That's okay. I mean, yeah, sure.
But sorry, I would like to go back to the main topic. So actually, did we close the discussion about SAGA, or we have still something to discuss? Now, in terms, is anybody something to say about SAGA? Are we happy with that?
I think we agree on that, right?
Okay.
I just want to mention I'm here now for SAGA.
Oh, good. Good. Welcome, yeah. Okay, hi.
Maybe since you've joined us, Victor, you could mention your specific concerns, and there's a good opportunity for us to try to work better together with SAGA
Yeah, but we were discussing basically is that we really need LTR to be completely stable, because we need something reliable, and what we have decided is to keep the current approach, which is not to support all the SAGA version, but just the LTR. So that's I was asking if there's work done on the LTR, or mostly SAGA is advancing in new version, but the LTR is not just an LTR, but sort of a dead branch in there. So if you can clarify more or less, how much effort is being put into the LTR or the plans for the LTR, that would be cool.
Yeah. Maybe one note about the LTR is that, well, it's a bit hit by our own changes, in that way that it's quite hard to cherry pick changes from the upstream, because they more or less changed the whole file structure
Again.
immediately after releasing that LTR version. So I more or less gave up, and I only fixed things which were really broken.
So sorry, basically LTR is a fork now.
You could consider it that way. I personally, because I have to maintain a new version of SAGA soon, for a long time, I would like to switch the LTR version to something newer sooner or later, but I still have to discuss it internally. But one of the reasons I didn't do it yet was because, well, with all things changing in QGIS and stuff like that, I was a bit hesitating whether it was the right timing. Yeah.
So actually, well, my proposal is to keep everything as it is and to rediscuss this at the next LTR from you. Is that, does it make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Johan, there's a question from Tom in the chat room asking how long the current SAGA has been in place, the current LTR.
I don't remember, but definitely 2 years or something. Yeah.
A couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd be really interested to know, if there's anything we can do as a project to kind of help, build bridges between these different projects.
Maybe ask the question a different way, Johan, like how are you guys in SAGA experiencing the fact that QGIS uses SAGA? Is it like a good thing for you or a bad thing, or do you think it dilutes your project's value or increases the value of your project? And is there some room for us to work more closely together as projects?
So let me first of all say that I'm not the main developer or something of SAGA. So I try to be a bit a bridge between the QGIS for the community and others and the real SAGA devs. The point of view of let's say the two main developers of SAGA is that they are happy that it's used, but they don't want it to generate much extra work for them. And they have become more and more open about it. It used to be much more closed, just in general, SAGA. So I think we are making steps, but I say that already for 5 years, but I still believe it is the case. So they see some value in helping anyway. I still think that the other alternative, sorry. The main point I see is that how we can work together better. I think it would be influencing more or it would be that actually more contributors would be there at SAGA itself. That would solve the issue mostly, I think.
I repeat, do you think, Johan, that we as a QGIS team can do something to improve this? Something specific?
To what? I don't hear you.
Improve this communication. Because we'll be keen on having a stronger relation with that, and and better communication and everything. So any suggestion from you, it's most welcome. More than welcome. Can you hear me?
Well, I think it would be definitely for us, as long as QGIS uses the old version now or a very old version, it's hard to collaborate in any sense because, for example, if people would like to update documentation, then it would be a documentation in the fork. So from that point of view, I think it would be a nice time to maybe, and I understand your concerns, maybe switch to a newer version of SAGA once more, and maybe still remain doing this a bit like we do. In a way, because I thought the discussion was a lot about making the providers take care of the QGIS plugin itself themselves. Actually, that's what SAGA is doing now for ArcGIS. So we have a plugin for ArcGIS where you can run the SAGA modules from ArcGIS, and that is then kept up to date more or less within SAGA. Yeah, but okay. I think the main thing we could do is, because actually since the day we made the LTR break, I don't know if there's so much that has actually changed in the, well, let's say, the external API. So maybe we should, if we could somehow check or try to see if we can support a newer version. If we are on a newer version, definitely maintenance would be easier, because what I just told you about the file names which were moved all around would no longer apply. So you could really do maintenance, do cherry picks from the real branch, and then I think it's more maintainable for us. So that would definitely, I think, be the if you have a question, what could QGIS do? I think that would be an interesting step.
Question for Victor. Victor, you said that Alexander Bruy was trying a different approach, and can we have a look at that?
It's ready.
It's ready.
Yeah, I haven't. It should be. I don't know the link. I saw that he posted that in his Facebook, so there should be a link there. But I haven't had time to take a look at that. So it might be in his GitHub.
He's quite active on the SAGA mailing list recently, so he's definitely doing things.
Okay. So, but given that this new approach works and it would be better, can we think about using it in the next 3.2 release? That would be the idea.
Actually, he just opened a pull request, Alex, for SAGA. 3 minutes ago.
So my question stands. So given this new work by Alex Bruy, it works and it's better, we wanted to move on to this for the next 3.2 release.
Is this a question to me or?
Yeah, it's a question to everyone.
Okay. Because I didn't see the code, so I cannot judge whether it's better or not. So, yeah.
Victor, what do you think about? I'm asking Victor because Alex Bruy is not here, unfortunately.
But whatever should use the classic approach or this new one? I mean, yeah. I think I haven't tried that plugin, and maybe it's fine, but I guess it's risky. But because you know that there's so many algorithms and so many things that it's not something that you can check and say, hey, it works in 10 minutes, right? So, and we don't have a huge set of unit tests that we can just run and say, hey, this works fine. So, especially what Alex says about this new approach is that it supports a lot of versions. So to actually know that, it's even more complex because you have to test with all those versions of SAGA. So, I think this might be a very good idea if what Alex has been doing is good, but definitely it's not something that takes little time to test and to verify that it's a better option to what we have now. So,
well, okay, but it is would be feasible to think about using that for a future.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like, if what we were saying is that so the idea of using the description files is because that allows us to tweak them and do something that is better for the user, let's say, but much harder to maintain and much less sustainable for us. So if we are not against sacrificing that little bit of customization that we can do, then definitely, I mean, I would say actually that it's better to have more sustainable approach than customized approach. So if what Alex has done works fine, then I wouldn't mind just getting rid of the old SAGA provider and replacing it with his provider.
Okay, so I will have a look at it. We'll speak with Alex and you, and
Okay.
starting try see if I find something that really does not work.
Yeah, I think we can test it here at the Hackfest. It's the right place to start. Okay.
That's good.
So should we move to grass now?
Yeah, just 1 second. Is
sorry.
anyone of the
Sorry.
QGIS community going to the Code Sprint in Bonn?
Not me.
Oh. Oh.
Okay, not clear. No, because I
Not that we know of.
was trying to, or I was thinking about convincing some people of SAGA to come over, and that would be a nice opportunity to work on it. But yeah, anyway.
Just a note. Yeah, it probably is better to start having a look at this Alex work as soon as possible, because actually this morning I found that there are problems in SAGA in 3.0 that make it unusable.
Unusable.
Or pretty much. So.
Okay.
Move on to grass.
Okay, shall we move on to grass? Okay then. Well, for grass, I think things are a bit simpler because the API of grass is much more stable. We had less, I would say, problems over time. So frankly, and we ship grass anyway on Windows, and we have it on most platforms. So frankly, in this case, I think discussion should be even easier than before. Does anyone has something to say about that?
No, I like the idea. I agree with keeping as we have said with SAGA, keeping that in core. That sounds safe option, and it's the best one, I think, I would say.
Okay, so
yeah, I'm +1 as well.
Okay. One thing that could be interesting is to reuse the same approach as probably Alex, as far as I understood, and likely also OTB people has done, just as I said, using the XML generated by Grass to rebuild the interface. But that's something for, well, maybe 3.2 or something like that. So if the approach for SAGA works well, then we can change the provider for Grass, but still keeping it in. Is that right? Can we agree with that?
Done.
Okay. Right. That was easy. Okay, let's move. Rashad, are you still there? Hopefully.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, we are there.
Good. Yeah. There is.
Hello?
So, okay. Yeah. Do you have backup? Do you have anything to say about that?
Personally, I don't completely agree on keeping us plugin, and the reason for keeping only OTB as plugin, but that is okay for us.
I can't.
Because I understand that's okay for you to decide, but in my opinion, technically standpoint, the reasons to keep OTB out and keeping SAGA and Grass was not totally technically okay, but that's okay for us to manage the plugin as externally from OTB side. And I will continue to finish the work and for QGIS 3, and that's okay.
Frank, I don't know others, but I couldn't really follow you, Rashad, sorry.
For my personal point of view, in technically, It is not in the technically points you are given to remove OTB and keep SAGA and grass was not totally agreeable by me, but we are okay. We are fine with removing it and keeping it as plugin as is now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just to chip in there, I think it's important to stress that the reason this kind of special treatment for SAGA and grass is also historic in that they've been available for for numerous releases, and part of the reason for
was
keeping them
also available
change
for
that.
a long release, so that's why we don't agree in that part, but we don't object anything on your decision side, and we will continue to work on that part.
But sorry, let me retake the lead, and I would like to close the issue with the grass first, and then discuss about OTB if everybody agrees. I think well, OTB it's just kind of a special case, so we have to discuss. Is there anybody from grass who has to say? Okay.
Yeah, I can say something. So I'm quite happy with what you said. For the future, using the XML, that sounds wonderful. So I would just say for that, but that's like a maybe technical issue, is that we may need to do some changes in grass for that. Like you say, oh, this is not 100%, we want to change it. And I think we had problems communicating this in the past. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
we should like be very intentional, I guess, about like, okay, let's try to solve it. Let's solve it on mailing list and things like that.
Okay.
But otherwise, that sounds good to me. And I think this should work well.
That's Paolo in the middle.
we can move on to OTB now. Okay, are we okay with grass? Okay. So, well, the issue with OTB is, from one side, it's a kind of less general purpose backend. That's sure. It interests a minority of users, and this places this backend in a kind of a special situation. That's sure. On the other hand, I would say we are quite fortunate that the OTB team is willing formally to take maintenance of the provider. So from the first side, I would say I would be more inclined to keep it out. And from the second point of view, I would say why not in? Because we have quite a few pieces of code that are not really maintained. And if we have the fortune of having a dedicated team to maintain a piece of code, why not? And the advantage, in my view, is that their approach, I think it can be useful, as we have been discussing about the XML, etc., could be useful for other providers too. So kind of, well, not really unifying, but sharing at least some part of the code and approach, etc. So from this point of view, I would say that it would be better to keep it in. So yeah, I open the discussion about that.
Yeah, the main difference I see is that although the original implementation of the 3 plugins, let's say Grass, Saga, and OTB, I did those myself. Then the maintenance of the Grass and Saga part has been mainly done by Alex Bouy, myself, or Neil, as the people working on processing, while the OTB team has been providing some contribution to that. So that means that the people in the Grass project haven't been contributing to that. People in the Saga project haven't been contributing to that. It's been people from inside QGIS, like myself, Neil, or Alex doing that. But the OTB team themselves, they have been contributing to that. So that's why I think it's a better idea if they take care of that instead of having that in core, right? We cannot give the. I mean, I would like even if we separate the plugin, the SAGA provider as a plugin, we are not going to give that to the SAGA team because they haven't actually contributed to that or participated in that. That would be not a good idea. It would be like, kind of killing the provider, leaving it there, because there's not a team behind that. But on the case of OTB, there is. I mean, the OTB team has been providing pull requests and a lot of things. So I think it makes sense to, that was my original proposal as I made it to them as well. So you've been doing that instead of sending pull requests, just let's put this into a separate plugin, and then you can manage it yourself as you want. You can synchronize that with the releases of OTB, things like that. So that's where I see the main difference. Like the team, the OTB team has been participating directly in the development. It hasn't been done by just QGIS developers like Alex, myself, or Neil, or some other people. Right?
Yeah, another difference that OTB is not shipped with the main installer, even on Windows. So a user has to install it separately. So installing a binary and a plugin doesn't look too much of a work.
Right. So if there's something that comes in core, but you need to do something extra to make that work, then I think it's better to keep it outside.
Victor, okay, I see the points. Actually, this is quite interesting. Actually, making plugin, like you say, it will allow us to fix some bugs, particularly in the plugin, and like that, which is interesting, really interesting for us. The point was actually when we change the people changes in the OTB team, the next person coming, or the person who will be next time in charge of the processing plugin have to take a lot of time to understand the processing provider plugin API, and not the QGIS, not the OTB part, not just OTB part, because from the processing provider right now what we are doing is just run the CLI, parse the descriptor and run the CLI. So parsing part and making up the GUI and doing the signals and the things, technical other stuff was maintained and is run through the processing API. So okay, each time we have a kind of bug fix, okay, the one person needs to go and find out whether it's a bug fix in the plugin or it's some kind of changement. So that takes some time, unlike SAGA. But the other providers, SAGA and GRASS, can get it easily because, as you say, you already and Alex and others are managing this plugin of SAGA and GRASS. You know the code base very strongly, and even though you don't have to install OTB or know anything about OTB, you can fix that part easily. Even there is a first version which is fixed by us or contributed by us, and we are again still open to, okay, if there is a thing you don't have to spend time, you can just drop a mail on bug tracker, we can fix the bug. So what I would like is maybe we can have the plugin externally in the current version, and if the plugin is more easy and to maintain and it's things like that, we can consider asking QGIS to take over. And if you see still the code is a problem or things like that, you can reject. That's also a problem. If the code gets much similar and you think that, okay, I am fine maintaining this one class of QGIS, or there is a volunteer in QGIS saying, okay, I will maintain this one plugin provider which is less code than provider for GRASS, SAGA, or R or others. So I can say, okay, I will maintain this and we will put it in the QGIS source tree. That's okay for me, because compared to the individually compared to the number of lines or other complexity is less. That's also okay for us. That in that way you can keep it outside for now. Once it's stabilized, the plugin code will think that, okay, there is nothing going to change in the plugin code unless you are changing some API in OTB. So we are not going to do that. Recently, Guillaume can confirm that in a minute. So that could be like a solution which, okay, first plugin, and after that, okay, this is going to be a core part of provider, because you will be free to change the provider part without thinking of okay, whether I break the OTB part particularly, or okay, just the OTB part will work because there is someone test and the next person coming, okay, who will be sponsored, funded, will have to learn the part, and it takes that time to manage. So you will cut those middlemen. That's only concern. I mean, you don't have to manage anything specific for OTB other than that. And like I heard before, the SAGA was there are some concerns that it was crashing and things and slowness. We will try to fix those things. I mean, we are proposing to fix, but the final decision will be you to, okay, whether taking it or keeping. But as I said, both are fine. From a technical point of view, I didn't see like, okay, technically it's a problem to remove OTB, and or okay, there is no users, will not be having installed, things like that. That's all my point. Guillaume can say some few words about application engine, API, and stability of that.
Yes, hello. About the application engine that we have in OTB, I don't see a lot of changes to happen soon. Well, I guess they will be minor. So we hope that the code for the QGIS plugin for OTB will remain quite stable, and we will see how it goes with QGIS 3, because we haven't tested that a lot yet. But I think that in the future, this plugin code may remain stable, and all the changes will be done on the descriptor file that we will provide ourselves. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, I don't know, Paolo.
Well, I really couldn't follow everything. Here, the sound is pretty bad. So I don't know if you understood more than me. Maybe you can comment on this.
Yeah, like I mean, I get it, but I don't know if we are going to come to an agreement in this, or there's different things. And it's true that I understand that they might like to have the OTB provider in core, and it's true that we're giving this kind of a special treatment to SAGA and GRASS, while ODB has also been part of core. So yeah, it's like I mean I don't know how to. It's something that there's some technical reasons, some other reasons in there, but I understand that the OTB team, and I understand as well what we think about that. So I don't know exactly how to manage that. I still, from my point of view, I think it's not bad for the OTB team to have that outside of core. I mean, I don't see any problem, but I don't know how we can decide on that. Just like
okay. Yeah, I'm glad of this, because that was something that I had in the back of my mind. I think one of the strengths of QGIS is that we have always been very, very, very open. I mean, anybody that could jump in was accepted happily and everything. And this is maybe the first time that we are trying to suggest someone to be, well, out of the door, very close to it, but out. And this is something that I'm not really very comfortable with, apart from the technical questions. So, well, I could resume my position that unless there are very strong technical reason to keep it out, from a more human point of view, I would say I would be for keeping it. I don't know if anybody.
Yeah, I agree with Paolo. I think like if there's somebody committed to maintain code, and we can include it, then it's nice to.
Sorry?
I said I agree with you that from social side, like being inclusive is good. If the person is committed to maintain the code, but we just don't want to have like a dump and run environment where people drop stuff and then make it the responsibility of QGIS to manage. The thing is, for a user as well, like the more out-the-box things we can give them, I mean, sometimes it's nice to get everything out the box, but I know you can get it from the plugin repository, but it's an extra step to follow.
Yeah, but I still think like there is really good positives in having it. Sorry, some really good positives in having things as plugins, in that the release schedule is like separate. You know, they can plugins can push out a release anytime they want, like when it makes sense for their particular project, and they're not tied to the QGIS release schedule. You know, I think that's a huge benefit. I also think you know, almost having this like firewall between the QGIS project and plugins is kind of a good thing, because we don't want people filing bugs about GRASS algorithms, and we don't want people filing bugs about SAGA routines and that sort of stuff that we don't have any power to fix in QGIS itself. And having that sort of separation of, actually that's a third party plugin, you know, that's not our responsibility to maintain or to make sure it's stable or to make sure it works out of the box, is kind of a good thing. Like we can guarantee that out of the box the QGIS algorithms work and the GDAL ones work and such. The moment we start widening that too far, we're just asking for this kind of impossible to manage situation where we can't ensure that everything works out of the box.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I guess by like, if we're inclusive in the plugin repository, it still meets these kind of openness criteria.
Yeah, and actually speaking of that, all that out of experience, we're not actually providing an out-of-the-box experience with OTB because it doesn't come in style. So in any case, even if it's in core, doesn't mean that the QGIS user will install QGIS and will have OTB available. It won't. So it will have a provider, but the provider without the OTB application, without the backend, is absolutely useless. So.
But Victor, this is the same for SAGA and GRASS. If I don't have installed SAGA or GRASS, which can be the case for many of our users, they still have the provider which is not usable. And right now I went ahead and installed the SAGA latest version. It's not working because, you know, the last supported version will be 2.3 point something. And that will be the supported version in QGIS. So this is
but in the case of SAGA, it is shipped in the standalone version for Windows. It is included in OSDO for Windows. So it's I mean, if the user wants to have something with QGIS, SAGA, and GRASS in one single click, he can have it. But
yeah,
that's not the case with OTB.
The Windows installer, we was already providing OTB before, but we were blocked from some issues from our project sub-dependency called OSIM, and we went ahead by providing it's not an installer in OTB anymore. OTB, we have like a zip file which contains the full OTB. You don't have to install anything, and we have, since changing that, we have like 0 bug reports, like cannot install OTB on Windows or not working on Windows in our bug tracker. I think Guillaume can confirm about that. On Linux also, we provide a standalone binary for users. So users who doesn't want to install or run anything on want to use a different distribution, it works. And in Linux, there is also Debian. and Ubuntu, which now has OTB with an apt-get, same as Grass and Saga. On Mac, we also provide this thing. So you want to get a one extra zip file, but yeah, that is one extra step you need to do compared to Saga and things. But we can have the plugin provider which can download the zip file because there is no compilation or specific installation. We do the same installer setup on Snap, another GUI toolkit from ISA, but that's more of remote sensing, not like QGIS. It's a different special purpose. So we used that there, and it was working in that part. So yeah, there is an argument can be about, okay, installer will not be available on all the time on all the machines, but we had already solved that part, unlike earlier. So in earlier, yeah, you are right about this thing. And earlier we also had the OTP package in OSGeo4W, but as long as we remove one blocker, we maybe OSGeo4W just can take up the package, because we already have support for Windows for a long time, and a lot of our clients are using Windows.
Can I just ask Paulo, sorry, a question? Do we have a policy about binaries on the plugin repo?
Basically, we try to avoid that. We have a few exceptions, but in general, I tend to not to publish plugins with binaries inside.
Okay, but it's not a fixed rule.
As far as I remember, we have a special exception for crayfish because we can't refuse that. But for the rest, I think it's pretty much enforced.
Okay, but so you wouldn't have any issue. You wouldn't have any issue with this proposed approach of a plugin that downloads the OTB binary in.
No, if it downloads, maybe not. Or if it's inside, definitely it's not acceptable. That's how crayfish works. So it downloads something, asks the user, and everything.
We have a plugin. I have a plugin that downloads binaries.
Oh. Yeah, I think can happen.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So, as far as you're concerned, Victor or Niall, I mean the versioning, etc. Of course, it's a problem, but I think it's something that OTB team is fully aware of, and I think they can decide themselves. If it's better to be flexible and so be an external, so they are able to release new version, etc. Or if they prefer to be inside with the limitation that they can only update when we release a new version. So I don't think it's something that we should impose them, but that they could decide from themselves.
Another thing, I don't know if it's important or not, but if the code is going to, as I said before, it was Alex Brew was doing a bit of work with that. I was also maintaining that, but most of the code lately has been done by the OTB team. If we put that back into core, that means that there's a part in core that is managed by people that are not core developers, which means that whether we make them core, we give them access, or that means that we, the core developer, or people that have access to that code, has to merge all the pull requests, which means more work for us. So it's not that they are maintaining that. Yeah. Right, they are maintaining that, whether we give them access or they are maintaining that through us, right? So that's also something to consider in there, because I think it's important. Because it might be that maybe they are, what we're saying, that they decide no, we are okay with this less flexibility. But that means that maybe they make a pull request and no one merges that. That's how it works, right? So if we are doing other things or whatever, so that's something to, because the situation might be particular that there's a part of the code that the main group of people maintaining that do not have right access in the QGIS core. So that's also important to
Yeah, of course, it's a good point, and I kind of implied a reply to your question, saying that I don't see any reason why we shouldn't grant them a right access. If they ask for and they try to throw out guidelines, as we have done with many people, I would vote for getting them in.
Okay.
So Rashad, OTB, are you happy with that? Any question?
No, not particularly. We have the points already, so that's okay.
Paolo, can you make a short summary of the conclusions for everyone? It's been quite a long, complicated discussion. So
yeah. I'm writing an email about that, but yeah, shortly, let's see. We keep SAGA as LTR. We want, in principle, to upgrade to the next LTR based on the new Alex Brewery approach. Then we want to keep GRAS, possibly moving the provider to the same approach, the same XML approach. Then we invite OTB team to join us and to maintain their piece of code. Yeah, we have a high priority on checking the Alex work because it's crucial to all this reasoning. And it's more or less that. This is my conclusion. I don't know if I'm missing something. But,
and that's when you say keep them, you mean they would all be internal code, not plugins? Or?
Yeah.
But sorry, I'm still unsure if it was pulled back in as a core thing. How's the automatic install of the binaries going to work? Is it on first run? If they're not installed, then it downloads and installs them. Is it on first QGIS launch? We do that.
Can be a user interaction.
This is kind of
yeah, sorry. I think we can decide this later, but my preferred approach would be not installing, not downloading, installing, but checking if it's there. And if it's there, you activate the provider. If not, it just disappears from the user. So from the user side, your instruction would be first install OTB from their source or whatever, and the plugin just check if it's there. That would be my approach, but of course, can be wrong.
Just one note about GRAS. So if given that the new approach from Alex Brewery for SAGA works, and we want to move GRAS to this approach, it will be needed to understand who will do this work.
Well, that could be a grant. Of course, we have this grant program. I think it will be very suitable for that, for instance. Or we can start a campaign. I mean, we have some money in the box, so I don't know. We have the treasurer here, so well. I think resources are not really a big problem. I mean, if we need some money for that, we can find it somehow.
Well, I don't think it matters anyway because the current approach is working. You know, like, sorry, it might not be like ideal, but at least what we've got there for GRAS works well. Like, there's no real issue with the GRAS provider. So I'd consider it the same as any kind of QGIS feature or fix or whatever. Like, if someone wants to do it, they can do it. If they find sponsorship, they can do it. Otherwise, it doesn't get done until somebody does it.
yeah, right, of course.
Hey, can I just add another thing to this discussion? Can we please make a hard rule then that these are the 3 exceptions and there's no more?
Right, yeah. That's a good idea.
Say it again, sorry?
So these 3 providers, these are like the exceptions to the rule. Everything else is a plugin, and that's where we draw the line.
Agree.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, there are quite a few other plugins that are providers for processing, and there will be new ones for sure. So if people start saying like, "Hey, why are these in there and the other ones are not in there?" So Let's write that down clear, like these 3 are special. So don't ask for the same treatment.
Well, yeah, I understand the point and I agree, but saying it hard, it's a bit too much to me. I mean, if tomorrow wonderful backend comes out, we have a very general purpose and everything, I wouldn't like to fix myself not having it in. I mean, of course, we can have rules. So if it affects, only a minority of users, if it's whatever, I agree with having very strict rules. This I would subscribe now. Saying no by principle, I'm not so.
Paolo,
you can have a rule of having 3 core providers. So there's a fantastic another one has to go out.
They have to
We
find.
let them find. Yeah, that's it.
I'm going to say, Paolo, I'm looking at Victor and Niall's body language, and I'm thinking they're still not completely happy with the setup and with having these providers included. And I mean, am I reading you guys wrong? But
Yeah, I mean, I still think ideally, the actual ultimate setup would be all of them are plugins. But I'm willing to be flexible here, and this is kind of like me compromising and saying, okay, these 3, yep, fine. There's good reasons for these particular ones, but I still think, I strongly feel that actually in the ultimate setup, everything would be the plugin.
For
QGIS 4, we can think about some other mechanism. Like right now, if you want to install one of these plugins that is a provider itself, you go to the plugin manager. But maybe, who knows, in the future, maybe the processing toolbox is empty except for the native providers, and then you can install new providers maybe from the toolbox itself instead of having to go to a plugin manager. So it kind of looks to the user. I see it installed, but then it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Victor, what about having something where when you see like that you embed in the algorithm or in the model itself the provider that's needed, and then when it sees it's missing, it will go and like trigger to install it?
Yes, and I mean, so adding some kind of ability in the toolbox or in processing itself to actually fetch the available providers and install them, or even install them and install the backend, so all together. So I mean, that's a more advanced thing for the future. But and if we somehow have that, then as Neil was saying, and definitely we can have something that everything is a plugin, and then for the user there won't be any difference between having it in core or not, being a core or not, because you can install that. Or
can't we take a parallel approach to say, okay, we make these 3 exceptions for now, but at the same time, if you guys get the mechanism in place to do this on-demand installation of the plugins that we agree, at that point we will drop the 3 out of core and go with just this on-demand installation. We kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, right, something like that. But have something, so everything it would be a plugin, but then we can have some of them automatically install upon the installation of QGIS or something like that. So yeah. But yeah, for now, these 3 ones, I think it's fine.
Okay, so we have another session now. When can we close this one? Are we okay?
Yes, we need to close here.
And by the way, the deadline passed. We have officially QGIS free.
Woohoo! Did somebody bring champagne?
Congratulations!
Let's make a toast. Well done, guys.
Wow. Well done. Well done.
That's a big milestone, eh?
Wow.
Great. So thanks, everybody. I think it has been an exceptionally productive meeting, this one. I'm really very happy that we brought everybody together. We had GRAS, we had SAGA, we had OTB. So I think we have a bright future. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks. I'm going to hang up here, and if you want to join the session, you can follow the link on the wiki page. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. I'm off.